Welcome to Changing Rooms, brought to you by our good friends at Elect, where a few of us ex-pros bring you stories from the pitch and beyond. I'm Barrie McDermott. I will be joined every week by Adrian Morley and Shaun Lunt, legends, mates, and proof that life after rugby is full of lessons, laughs, and the odd knock-on along the way. Together we talk about challenges, change, and what keeps us moving forward on the field, at work, and in life. So let's get stuck in. Welcome back to Changing Rooms, brought to you by our good friends at Elect. Adrian Morley, Shaun Lunt, welcome back, lads. Do you enjoy the first one?
Certainly did, mate. It was awesome. Something new. A little bit nervous at first, but then as we got chatting, it started to flow and really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I did, Baz. Yeah, good chat. Enjoyed it. So we're here. Let's go again.
Good. Well, it's nice to know that you've made the effort with your attire and, you know, you've gone blue, I've gone green, and Moz, you've gone to match your teeth. But anyway, I thought we'd start by work because we're trying to correlate, you know, the difference and the similarities between our previous work environment and this work environment. Give us some of your thoughts and memories on your first job, Moz.
Well, I didn't sign at school as a lot of the professionals do, so I had another year amateur, under 17s. So in my family in the north of England, it was big to get an apprenticeship at the time. My eldest brother was an apprentice electrician. My middle brother was an apprentice joiner. So I joined them ranks. I was an apprentice electrician. So it was tough. I couldn't drive at the time, just leaving school. So I was 16-year-old, but I was working in Liverpool at the time. So I had to get up at 6 o'clock, walk to Eccles, which is about 2 miles, get picked up, get took to Liverpool, work, get dropped off at Eccles, walk back. So I was leaving the house at 6, getting in about 6 for £1.52 an hour. So, but didn't think anything of it. And even at the time, I was still, you know, I had 50 quid in my pocket at the end of the week. And some of my mates who were at college didn't have that luxury. So, but that's just what you did at the time.
Lunty, what were your first work?
Oh, my first job was actually working in a warehouse at Argos. So when I was at Castleford, I was full-time, but I was only getting £8,000 a year. So I had to work of an evening. And I was 17 at the time, so I couldn't work in the main warehouse because I wasn't old enough, not classed as an adult. So they put me in the jewellery section with all the women packing. And there was some older women from Castleford. So you know where I'm going with this. You know, I was a young lad, young strapping rugby league player. And every time I walked to the toilet, there's this old woman. She used to pester me all the time and say, "Oh, the things I'd do to you." So next 6 months I spent in toilets.
So let's get into the main topic for discussion today. Not everybody gets to call professional sport their job, but as we know, we're lucky. It's a pleasure, it's a privilege, but it's a challenge. It's not all it's cracked up to be. So what do you remember about your first day in a team environment?
Yeah, so I signed on my 17th birthday in May, but then waited that season out. So I started in September. That was the old seasons when you know it's winter rugby league.
Who's in that changing room? Some big names in that changing room.
There was some big names. However, as a young academy / A-teamer, you didn't go in the first team changing rooms. That was the rule. The first team changing room was the first teamers and fringe players. Then they had another changing rooms for the A-team. Then they had another changing room for the academy. So coming from an apprenticeship background, it was similar in a working environment. You'd go in as an apprentice. You wouldn't dream of talking to these senior electricians the way you would your mates. You've got to earn your stripes and go up the ladder, even though I was bigger than all of them. And you just didn't do that. And certainly I would never do that in the professional environment. So I got there and Leeds had the likes of Ellery Hanley and Gary Schofield, these absolute superstars. But I didn't say boo to a goose. But it was very, very daunting, them first few training sessions, but also very exciting.
Lunty, you and I are similar in that respect. I signed for Oldham, you signed for Workington. I joined a changing room with 28, 29, 30-year-old blokes who'd been demoted from the first division as it was then. They were in the second division. I wasn't put in the academy changing rooms. There were 6 of us signed at the same time. 5 of my mates went in the academy or 18 dressing room. I was straight in the first team. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but the coach, Peter Tunks, was like, "You're playing in the first team." And true to his word, I played in the first day, but I was sat in the corner, didn't have a clue what I was doing. Back in the old days, the coach used to rub you down. So he'd be talking to you and giving you little tidbits of advice while he's rubbing and trying to rip the skin off your bones. So in that sort of first couple of training sessions, I'm just sat there really quiet, in awe of what was going on with these people who I'd watched on the terraces, but thinking to myself, I don't want to say a word out of place, even though I was the same. I was probably as big as everyone else, but in my character, I wasn't formed yet. What about you, walking into Workington?
So when I went to Working, it was obviously they were a part-time club and they were in the second division, and it was, you know, walking in there, it was really totally different from me because I'd been at Castleford, so I had that professional mentality, and then I'd gone in. And then you've got all these, you know, ex full-time professionals that have dropped down the league, that have come on for a payday, and they just don't care. They're talking about being on the drink at the weekend, doing this, doing that. And I'm just sat there, I'm like, what am I doing in my life here? Like, what has this become? Is this going to be me for the next, 20 years? But moving on from that, obviously I was lucky enough, and then I sort of talk about my career when it kicked off at Huddersfield, when I kicked on and went full-time professional, and I was 21 at the time. So there was Kev Brown, there was Luke Robinson, Stephen Miles. He had all these Great Britain internationals, and I'd actually met Kev probably about 2 weeks prior than going in, because he came in early for training. So I sort of knew Kev. So obviously when you're walking into changing rooms, you want to sit with your mate, don't you? And you feel comfortable there. Yeah. So I'm sort of walking around with Kev like a little lapdog. Because I was one of the youngest there, I can always remember we had a friendly against Castleford at Castleford. And that was my real challenge, you know, as sort of challenging me as a man. And so Kev goes, come on, we'll get on bus and you can sit next to me. And you know Kev really well, Kev Brown, and he's a rum bugger. And he knew fine when he was stitching me up. So he sat me down, and I'm sat in Stephen Wells' seat. So we sat there normal, and everyone, looking back now, you can see everyone's waiting for this to happen. So while this comes to me and he goes, you're in my seat. And it couldn't have been anyone more miserable than him to be sat in his seat, right? So I'm sat there, and he said, move. I said, no. And I was like, oh no, he's not backing down. I'm not backing down here. So he goes, right then. So this happened, continued for about 5 minutes. And then the bus was about to set off, and he goes, I'm just going to stand here and I'm going to prod you and annoy you. And it was one of my first games for the club. So what I did do, I was, okay then, Waldy, I'll give you your seat back. But I got a bottle of water, I opened it and poured it all over the seat. I went, go on then, sit down. And I just went and sat at the back.
You get a hard time when you went in to that elite environment?
No, they were all great, really. I mean, in the first year I was there at Leeds, I played half the year in the academy, only played about 6 A-team games, and then got an opportunity to play first team. But they were all fantastic. I ended up living with Neil Harmon, actually.
Would you say he was the one that took you under his wing? He's talking about Kev Brown.
Yeah, I think so. There was another lad, Phil Hassan, who is a little bit older than me, but he was mainly A-team at the time. But because he was from Lancashire, we used to travel together. So Phil Hassan was fantastic. Neil Harmon was great. But I did play three first-team games in my first season, and then they got me in and said, we know you're an apprentice electrician, but we'd like to bring you in so you can train during the day full time. And they said, what do you earn? I said, 80 quid a week. They said, we'll match it. Weren't until I come out the office. I thought, why did I say I was on 250? But my dad said, you don't get in trouble for telling the truth, Adrian. No. So then I was full time.
Should have followed that advice, really.
Yeah, should have, yeah. But then I was full time, but that was the just pre-Super League, so 96, that's when it Super League and the money was in, and then I signed a better deal for Super League era.
It's funny you were talking before about, because Oldham was my first club. Then Wigan was my first big club, and then I came here. But Oldham was a real adjustment for me because it was in my town. It was familiar. So Waterhead, my amateur club, Oldham, back to back. So I was familiar with everything except the people. So my first game debut, we played Sheffield away. Got back to the local place where we all used to go. It's called Emery Africa's. Great night out. And I'm drifting across the other side of the room to speak to my mates, and I get a tug on my shirt, and it's Paul Ryan, big Paul Ryan, Charlie McAllister. They were thick as thieves. And he said, where are you going? I'm just going to see my mates. And he said, no, we're your mates now. You need to stay with us. And I was like, right, all right then. Obviously, what you do is you end up bringing your mates into that big group, the ones that you trust anyway. We know a few of yours that you've only had a few times, but in the main, the lads that you brought were good lads, and they actually contributed to the group, didn't they? But was it overwhelming for either of you when you went into that environment? Do you feel like you had to prove yourself?
I certainly did. Like I say, I came into I came into Huddersfield and they'd signed Scott Moore as 9. They'd signed Keil Carlisle as a 9, and they had David Fayuma as 9. And I did get told as well, if I hadn't signed when I did, they wouldn't have signed me, because when I signed, someone else wanted to sign me. So I was like, oh, that's great to know that if you don't want me here, then I'm just here, and I'm just.
Was that fuel for you?
Yes, it was. That just made me train even harder, and I was the fittest at training. So I'd come from work in town, and that was, again, talking about our drives. I was just a hard worker. Nothing beats hard work, and I made sure I was the fittest. And I can remember doing drills, and the bumper at the time was the conditioning. It was like, we were doing like 10 back, 20 back, 30 back, 40 back. And the bump came over and said, oh, every set you had someone different at the time, and I was at the front all the time. And that's what I prided my game on. You know, I wasn't the best player, but sort of, if I was here at minute 1 of a game, at minute 80, I was still there, where people start there and come down. So that gave me that fuel to say, and I was a stubborn little get. And again, I didn't let it show at the time that it affected me. And come the end of that season, I was the number 1 choice 9, knocking on England's door, and started in the Challenge Cup final. So yeah, that from that first, initial 6 weeks of where I had to drown someone's seat to show me that I weren't going to back down, and that grit and determination, it got me through to being number 1 hooker.
Moz, many people will know this about you, but I'm just going to state on record, you was the fittest forward I ever played with. It didn't matter whether you'd been to bed at 8 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning, you'd just got in from the night before. You were always at the front. You were an incredible athlete with a lot of natural gifts, but a will and a mentality to be at the front. And I'm just going to, just a short one on Paul Ryan. I remembered when you were talking there, my first training session, I'm the same thing, young kid, fit, thinking, right, that's it, I'm having it. And again, Roundy, get behind me, you'd no prizes in training. I probably took that a bit too far into my career, actually, because I never won anything after that. But you were always at the front, and I think you always wanted to make a statement to the people around you. You can always count on me.
Yeah, well, I mentioned in the last episode, I realised what my strengths were early on, being big, strong, aggressive and fit. So I challenge anyone to say they trained harder than me. If you can be as fit as you can be, it'll see you in good stead. And there's a lot of pretty average players who are very, very fit, and they've made a good career out of it, haven't they?
I think it's probably one of the things. Yeah, but it is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one of the
will and desire
attributes.
is a character attribute,
of course.
And it could be classed as a skill, because we undervalue will and desire. We put a good kicking game or a good tackle technique or whatever it is that's in your little kit bag when you become a rugby league player. We'll talk about rugby league at the minute. We'll maybe touch on the working environment and what bits you carried across, but that will and that understanding that I might not get there today, but I'm going to try my best today, and I'm going to try and get there tomorrow, and that continuation and not getting disheartened if you don't get there. So I just want to ask about, the beginning, because it's really important when people listen to this. They understand there's some insecurities. You don't know what you have to offer. You've obviously been told by somebody that you're good enough to be in the environment. And then you do have the senior pro saying to you, hey, listen, get behind me. Were there any rituals, anybody that sort of took you to one side and said, you need to understand how this works?
There was no rituals. Everyone was dead welcoming, dead helpful. And, when you see, your heroes on TV, you don't know what they're going to be like, but they're all absolutely fantastic. Rugby league's such a leveler, and, when you do make the first team, you're one of them, basically. But I did suffer from, I think they call it imposter syndrome. So I was 17 when I made my debut out here on Good Friday in 95. I played a couple of games, but then we had a break, and then it was the centenary shortened season. So I'd just turned 18, and then I was first team, and then I was thinking I'm going to get found out here. I shouldn't be here, but I was getting good feedback from my coaches, from my family, and my mates. You're playing all right. It weren't until I played about probably a dozen games, and that's when the penny dropped. Thinking I deserve to be here. I should be here. This is my level. And since making that decision in my head, my performance has improved dramatically, from not being confident to suddenly I should be here, and then represented my country a year later. That was how big a turning point it was. And then it was plain sailing after that. But initially, it wasn't as easy as you'd think.
It's a good point, that, Lunty, because what you do is you walk into an environment, you think, right, I'm going to have to do what they do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm out on my own and I'm going to have no mates and nobody's going to like me and, you know, I'm going to struggle to get in this team. But at some point you think, right, I've got all that, but this is what I bring to the table. Yeah. Is there a point where you thought, either at Workington or at Huddersfield, right, I'm going to change who I am? No, not change who I am, but I'm going to change what these people think I am and just push my standards a bit more true to myself.
Yeah, so when I first went to Workington, they actually give, well, probably about 6 months into the season, our skipper at the time, he had a season-ending injury. So I was 18 and they made me captain. So I thought, brilliant. You know, that was great. But then what I did do was probably the worst thing that could ever happen to me, because I thought I had to be a captain right away, right? So I sort of, but all the older lads, they got jealous, and who's this 18-year-old lad coming in and telling me what to do? So then I got it stripped from me. So that was a big knock in my confidence. So when I was at Leeds in the 2012 season, I'd learned so much. I learned so much about myself, and I learned just how a team environment should be. And it was one of the first times I ever felt comfortable in my own skin in a rugby team, because again, what a lot of people don't see in rugby as well, it's a very volatile changing rooms. I've always said, you know, if you go into the changing rooms and you're feeling a bit shitty or not very good, or if you had an argument with the missus and you go in there and you try and find someone that's not feeling too good themselves, and you deflect everything on them, so you get away, because it's the banter is non-stop all the time. So then I came to Leeds and I was just like, the vicious banter wasn't there. It was all about coming in and getting the job done. And then obviously we won the grand final. I loved it. I didn't want to go back. I agreed a 3-year deal at Leeds at the time, but I had to go back to Huddersfield. And I said to Blue, I said, I'm not coming back to Huddersfield to do the same as what I was doing before. I said, I've just left the best club in England at the time to come back here. I want my career to thrive. And I can always remember something happened with a certain player who was one of our senior players that happened at training. And I went up to the coaching staff, and me, Robbo and Grixie, and said, we're not standing for that. That needs to stop. Said, and I probably wouldn't have done that.
No.
I've been at Leeds and learned how, you know, a true sports person should be, you know, and call people out. And I had the confidence to go back. And that year, I'm not saying this is why we won it that year, but that year we went on and won the League Leaders Shield at Huddersfield. But yeah, definitely at Leeds, just them, the mentors of Kev Simpfield, Jamie Peacock. Again, going back on Kev, I was very lucky to travel with Kev. You travelled with Kev yourself, didn't you?
Yeah.
For a number of years. So
taught him absolutely everything he knows, even the marathon running.
So I travelled with Kev, and every day I was just picking his brains and whatnot. And again, really well with Kev, and yeah, just learned so much from him. And what I've always tried to do is just pick little traits off people. You know, I don't want to be Kev. Kev's already Kev, but take a little good bit from him, a little bit good from him, and try and mould him into myself.
And it's corporate speak, innit? You've got to know what good looks like. If you don't know what good looks like, then you'll just keep doing the same things, ending up getting maybe the same result, maybe a different result by pure accident. Moz, you've been a captain, and I'll tell you now, when I met you at 17, 18 years of age, I would have never said that you would have developed into somebody that had leadership qualities. At what point, and it's the same question but phrased slightly differently, at what point did you stop becoming somebody who was just turning up and following everybody else to somebody who said, right, this is what we're going to do? Probably
when I went to Warrington. That's when Paul Cullen asked me to captain Warrington. But again, I was reluctant. I've always loved training, loved playing, but the responsibility I wasn't that over the moon about. But at this point in my life, I was a dad. I'd been an international for more than 10 years. I'd played in Australia, so I did have the experience. And that's when I thought about it. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, I'm ready for this. But then I thought, I don't want to be a captain and, you know, all the silly decisions off the pitch, all the silly decisions on the pitch, getting sent off, getting suspended, etc. So I did change the way I played after that, and proud to say I never got sent off for the rest of my career. And it wasn't something I took to straight away. As with everything, it takes a bit of time. And after that, I was you know, felt great doing that role, and got a chance to captain England, captain Great Britain was unbelievable.
Well, Lunty, we talked, your previous answer was about going back to Huddersfield and saying, right, listen, I think this is what we do. At what point and what do you think happened prior to going back to Huddersfield that you thought, I'm confident enough to step forward? Was it literally that you'd seen and you experienced it and you wanted to pass it on?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I came into probably one of the best team environments that there's been in team sport for a long time. When I went back, I had to sit down with Baloo, and he said that you need to be you're a senior player now. So you could say that I left the boy and came back a man as a rugby player and carried that burden. And again, I felt more. It's weird because again, when most talks about that imposter syndrome, I went back and I felt like more people respected me.
Yeah,
I'd earned it. I'd gone away. I'd become a champion, and I'd come back and people actually listened to what I said.
So it was actually outside influences rather than some conscious decision you'd made. It was outside influences.
And that has been a biggest my sort of downfall that in my playing days is outside influence. So a lot of people say, like I was very fortunate to play for England for one time, and everyone used to say to me, why did you only play once? Right? Because if you think about it, I played against Australia, at Australia. If you could say that you want to make one game ever, you'd want to be against Australia, wouldn't it? Right? And I used to always say that I wasn't good enough, but it wasn't that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't emotionally strong enough to take the setback. So when I got dropped from the team, again, I let all the outside noise, outside influences, rather than focusing on the inside and what I can do to get better. And so for me, that was the biggest thing, that imposter. I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. I shouldn't be there. I shouldn't be this. And then, like I said, when I got older and started realizing that it is inside, block out the noise, and then that's when I started to really, really kick on.
And it is a process. And I know we're talking about rugby league, but it's true to life. You go into any new job, new skill, new environment, you have to understand what's required of you. Then you can start to drip feed your personality, and then eventually you can start to lead. So Lunty said it was a circumstance out of his control. He's gone to lead, he's come back. At that point, he realises he's got more to offer than just as a follower. Was there a game? Was there a moment? Was there a season that you thought, that's it now, I'm above everybody else, not so much above, but I'm capable of giving information that everyone will accept?
Yeah, probably 09. So the second year was Captain Warrington, but the way Paul Cullen said, I said, I don't feel I'm captain material, but he said, you've been a leader whether you knew it or not. The way what you do in training, what you do in games, that's great leadership. And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. But probably 2 years of actually, being in the job, that's when I felt really confident. We had a great year in 09. We ended up winning the Challenge Cup.
You did.
Can't remember who was it against, but we won the Challenge Cup.
I had front row seats, don't we?
You did, mate.
I think you gave it away when you were.
Yeah, but that year I got shortlisted for the Man of Steel as well, and I felt I was doing my role well. Obviously, the team was doing well, and that was probably when I said, right, this is for me now.
Do you see anything that you've gone through in that early part of your professional rugby league career, whether it's as a semi-pro, as we were, all of us at some point, or coming into a full-time environment? Do you ever see any similarities between that first day of work for anybody that's watching this and has a little bit of anxiety about first day at work, new profession?
100%. I mean, I've spoke about how nervous I was, how daunting it was, but also how excited I was. When you start a new job, you start a new club, it is very exciting. You meet new people, new skill sets, that kind of thing. So I mentioned going it with a bit of enthusiasm and just enjoy it. Some you might feel uncomfortable, but any situation is enjoyable. And then if you put your heart into it, I'm sure you'll settle in and enjoy the experience.
The sentiment of wanting to prove yourself, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how you go about doing it, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Again, you mentioned on taking criticism. I used to take criticism early in the days, and I used to nearly go home and start crying, or he didn't like me or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? Or if anyone used to say anything bad, it used to really affect me. But it's just criticism. It's just someone saying, right, you've done that wrong. It's okay. Now can you try this bit? And you got to be thicker skinned, I should say.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's a term that's
and I
thrown
think
around.
we are, in general, as ex-sportsmen, we've got thick skin. My skin is as thick as a rhino. I do not care if I get it wrong. I'll just keep going. Just keep turning up. And the more experiences I've got behind me, i.e. failures, the better I'll be, because at some point I'm going to get it right.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that day will come soon, Moz. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about some legendary lineups, some dream teams and dynasties. I'm a bit older than you two, so I still remember the dominant team of the 80s and 90s that Wigan had. I think they won 8 Challenge Cups back-to-back. Sean Edwards, who was a maverick as a player. They had a pack of forwards that could beat up anybody. Martin Fire came at the back end, and they just almost beat people psychologically before they got on the field. So I'll start with you, Lunt. You've got the whole of the 80s, 90s and now to pick from. Which team stood out to you and why?
So there's a couple that stood out, and obviously it was the Bradford side in the early 2000s. I wasn't playing professional then. I was still a young kid. I was in my early teens, and just seeing that team was just absolute ferocious. You know, the size from Shantae Happy on one wing, and then you've got Nathan McAvoy on the other wing. There was only 3 people that were small, and they were probably all 6 foot, with Deacon, Robbie Paul, and James Law. So, you know, that team was formidable. That pack, and obviously you played against that. That was sort of your main era as well as playing on it. And I can always remember I was at Castleford, and it would have been in around about 2006. And I played a curtain raiser before you guys played at Odsall, and there's 26,000
What a
people
place
there.
Odsall was, by the way.
I know, that ball,
What
that
a
atmosphere.
place.
Yeah. So we had actually played right before you guys played, and we had a late-ish kickoff. So by the time we just finished, you guys were ready for warming up. So there was probably about 10,000 people in there at the time.
warm-up, yeah.
And then we watched the game, and there's 26,000 there. And obviously you guys, there was no love lost between you, knocking lumps out of each other. But for me, when I played, it was the 2010 Wigan side that really stands out to me. The 10 and 11 season they had under Michael Maguire. I played against them the year before, the last game of the season, and we beat them very comfortably at Huddersfield. And then obviously Madge came in that year, and obviously he's taken the Broncos to the final this year. And there's a lot said about his beliefs and how he trains them. He trains them really hard, you know, he makes everything tough. And I do believe in all that tough stuff, you know, not the pretty stuff where people go on, you know, summer training camps, they'll go to Tenerife or they'll go to Spain, where that year I believe he took them into an army camp, and none of them had sleeping bags, and they had no sleep for days, and stuff there that just makes you tough, like genuinely tough. I do think that, again, in this woke era, everything's too easy, nothing gets really, you know, down nitty gritty. And I think that team, when they came out in 2010, they absolutely battered everyone. And as a team, they were all connected. There weren't, you know, there was no individual. Sean O'Loughlin came into his own. He was unbelievable. They had Amos Roberts at the back. They had Mickey Mack and how ferocious he was. So they had Sam Tompkins coming into it, you know, when he was younger. They had Joel Tompkins, and they were just relentless. They were literally relentless. And that year, I believe they won the Challenge Cup, and then the grand final, it was the opposite way around, you know. So that as a team for me, I really, you know, admired that team. Hated playing against them. You always knew that. And we had some great games, some big brawls, but the respect that I've got for that team, that 2010, 2011 team is, it was special, that team.
You would have played against them and all, wouldn't you, Moz?
Yes, I did. Yeah, it was fantastic. You know, there's a big rivalry with Warrington, Wigan anyway, and every game, you know, whether it's at Wigan or Warrington, was full blooded, and that's what you want to do when you play rugby league. You want to be competitive, you want to be physical, and that's exactly what you got from Wigan.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Leeds Bradford stuff, because that is a bitter rivalry, and if you're a Leeds player, you would never dream of socialising or, you know, being involved with anybody from Bradford, or even, you know, just getting your head around going anywhere near a Bradford player or team, or God forbid you'd go and sign for them, would you, Moz?
Well, I used to live with Neil Harmon, who was a Bradford player as well. I did.
Really?
Yeah, so, I'm
just going to make a note here. Judas. Right, okay.
Well, I was a gun for hire at the time, Barry.
30 pieces of silver and all that.
Exactly, and Bradford.
Go on, what were you going to say? What was your question?
Just saying, obviously, when I talked about that Bradford side, what was it like going up against them?
Brilliant. I loved it. And again, embracing the challenge of, they called them the awesome foursome.
Yes, they did, yeah.
There was Paul Anderson, there was
Fielding,
Stuart, Barrie McDermott, and there was the Aussie back row, was it called Doniger? Joe Vagana was the biggest of them all. He was like tackling a Kai, weren't he? Was
little
literally
Brian
the
Mack.
size of your wingspan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved it. My favourite game of all time is a game, a semi-final. You'd have played in it, Moz, 99 in Huddersfield. And they beat us in two semi-finals, and that was the third one. And it was a brilliant day, brilliant game. Best night out ever. Best stories ever that I would have to take to my death for fear of being locked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a brilliant experience around that period of time. And again, really pleased and proud I never played for Moz. However, I hope you enjoyed spending your 30 pieces of silver.
I did. It was, I've got the ring to prove it.
God bless Andy Lynch. Anyway, let's go on to your legendary lineups, Moz. What do you look at?
When I first started taking rugby league seriously, I was only, I just went to high school. I only started playing at 11, but then was obviously interested in Great Britain at the time. And 1990 stands out massively in my mind. That's the closest we come to winning back the Ashes since we won it in 1970. So it was the Test series over in England. We won the first Test at Wembley, and the second one we got robbed.
Who do we blame for that?
Well, we blame Lee Jackson, obviously.
We play with Jacko, and every training should be like, listen, if you hadn't took that dummy off Ricky Stewart, we'd have had the Ashes.
Yeah.
Good lad, Jacko.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
And but, I mean, that was,
great team now.
Fantastic. They had Errol Hanley, who's my hero. He was probably the greatest.
Two of the best players in the world in that team at that time, in Gary Schofield and Ellery Hanley.
Got one of my claims to fame is on my debut here, I got to play with Errol Hanley. I only played with him once, but not many kids can say they played with their idols. Gary Schofield, fantastic player. But yeah, that Test series really ignited something in me. Great Britain was the be-all and end-all after that. But from a playing perspective, I've got to say the team, my Warrington team, 2011. So I got made captain in 08. We'd won the Challenge Cup a couple of times, but 2011, I just felt we was on another level.
Your squad had Lee Breers, were the Monahans there at that time?
Bridge had a great year that year.
Bridge had a great year.
Bridge
Gareth Carvell was on fire. He was me prop sidekick, and he was fantastic. We had a little in-house competition, and it's great that you've got the same goal, but he'd come up to me, I got 180 metres this week, what do you get? And it was competitive, even though we were best mates. But Benny Westwood was on fire, Paul Wood, and there was a great competition for places. We had a bit of luck with injury because, unfortunately, that's part and parcel of the sport. We had a bit of luck with injury, but every game, we'd go into every game confident. I don't know how many games we'd lost, but it wasn't a great deal. And even the games against the tough lads, the big boys, we'd schooled them, really went to town on them. And I'd never felt as confident at the end of the year. And even though League Leaders Shield, in the olden days, that's your crown champions, aren't you? You're the best team in the comp, but that's not like that anymore. And it was a bit of an anticlimax, but I still say that was the best domestic team I played with.
It would be wrong if I didn't mention the Rhinos of 2004 through to, I said 2015. I know they won it in 17s. They've won it 8 times, the Rhinos, but over what they call the golden generation, that was Simfield, who was a master tactician and evolved his game. Maguire, who started off as a support player, but again became a game manager and steer of a team. Rob Burrow, who could change any other game. Jamie Jones-Buchanan, who was the grit and steel of the team, and you chuck Ryan Bailey in. Jamie Peacock was there as well. So over that period of time, Leeds had a number of people that came in and out of it. And I've heard Jamie Jones-Buchanan, who's going to be the chief executive of Leeds Rhinos now, I've heard him describe it like this. They talk about the golden generation being 5 players. There was approximately 150 players that came in and out of the system during that period of time. And they all added something different. So the Rhinos winning all those finals over a short period of time, 11 years, what is it that makes those great teams great, Moz? What goes into a great side?
Well, I think success breeds success. When you've had a taste of it, you want more and more. So that's the great incentive. But in terms of getting it right the first time, you need a strong coach, strong leader, and strong work ethic, and obviously talent as well. So if you had all them ingredients together, theoretically you've got the blueprint of a successful team, but you've got to work hard from day one, and you've got to have a clear goal, and you've got to execute that goal.
Lunty, what do you think are the key components of a successful team?
So I was very fortunate to be a part of that golden generation. I spent a short time there, and I seen firsthand what I believe was, and that was the leaders led. I travelled in with Kevin. We were the first ones in. I was only the first one in because I travelled in with Kevin out to be. He was the first one there on the training pitch. He was the first one out doing kicking. He was the last one out doing. He was the last one out the Kirkstall. You had JP, who was, he was monumental in lead, and if he wouldn't tell you to go do something, he'd be doing it before you, and then he'd drag you. So for me, them top teams like led by examples. You look at Rob, so small in stature, but could literally them grand finals. In my eyes, that was one of the greatest grand finals.
2011, that try.
Ever.
Yeah.
That I still watch that and get goosebumps. You got like Magsy, when people talked, you had Kylie Lilloway. I think he doesn't get the raps that he deserves. The way he used to just hit you, and you get back in your defensive line, you'd look, you'd have JP, you'd have Kylie, you're ready to go again. Nobody told anyone what to do. They just went and done it, and everyone followed. And again, that went right up to Brian Mack as well. All the coaching staff, everyone just were on the same page, doing the same thing. A good, strong leader, and everyone followed.
Some really good stuff there, lads. I want to cover our takeaways for the audience. Let's start with criticism and dealing with criticism in the right way.
Well, if it's constructive criticism, that's great. No one's perfect in sports, in the sporting life, in the working life. If your coach or the boss tells you you're doing something wrong or you can do something better, it's important to listen. It's important to be open-minded, and then they're only trying to make you better at the end of the day. So take it on board, apply it, and then see how you go.
Embracing criticism, Lunty.
Yeah, definitely. I think criticism's got a bit of like a stigma to it now. If people hear the words criticism, what have I done wrong? Especially I did, getting criticised on a pitch, doing video reviews after a game, and, the video bit there, and you'd see clipped Lunt, and you were going to get smashed in front of everyone. And I was just like, oh no, I had no sleep before because I couldn't sleep after games. And that really used to, weigh down on me and really change my mood for the rest of the week. So for me, it's something that I've had to evolve and really, look at criticism in a different way and say it's a chance to learn. I'm getting better. Someone's actually giving me the time and say, right, Shaun, you've done this wrong. Why not try this way? And again, for me, the word criticism is just to get better. Someone's trying to help you and look at it in a positive.
The next one I want to cover, it's something we talked about. What does good look like for you? You'd gone away, you'd come back, you had the tools. If you don't have that experience, if you don't have people around you who are good, where do you go to find that?
So for me, again, going back to the working days, so I was very lucky that I spent a lot of time with my brother, my elder brother Robert. We're very close. So what we used to do is when we went back down to Championship from a Super League level, we made sure we went to the gym in the morning at 6 o'clock. We went and worked all day on a building yard, and then went training at night. So we maintained our level of professionalism, our integrity. So it was an outside influence for me that kept me on the straight and narrow and kept doing the right thing when nobody was watching.
Moz?
I was fortunate that almost every year I was involved in the international camp, Great Britain or England. So you can't fail to learn off the best players in the country. So players like Andy Farrell, you just watch them, how they go about the business, turning up for training early, doing extras, and that had an effect on me. If the best players don't rely on your natural talent, if the best players in the world that are doing extra, it's not by fluke, it's not by chance, it's by hard work and putting them extras in.
And if you haven't got it in those people around you, you go and seek it, you go and find it, because it's an old adage, you become the sum total of the people you spend the most amount of time with. So choose those people very wisely and very carefully. I just want to cover in imposter syndrome, and people will look at this and think they're full of confidence, them guys, but an imposter syndrome sticks with you throughout your life. Whenever you move, whenever you change environment or those people that you're comfortable with. So how did you overcome imposter syndrome?
Well, it took a bit of experience. So I've mentioned, when I was playing first team, I'm going to get found out here next game, really nervous. They're going to see me for what I am. And it weren't until, as I say, probably a dozen games, and that's when the penny dropped for me. And I wish to myself, why did I just think of that from day one? But it's very hard to judge it, and it's very hard to kid yourself, basically. But it is tough.
It's positive reinforcement. That's what it is.
It is. And again, the same thing happened when I got my first England cap. What am I doing here? You know, I'm in an England team. It's this is ridiculous. But then after a few games international, I deserve to be here. You know, I'm here on merit. So it's a normal human response, but it's a tough one. But just be confident and think the person who picked you in that squad, they saw something in you that possibly you didn't see yourself. Just embrace it. Just think, I deserve to be here, and go for it.
Trust in yourself. Think positive. Reinforce those positive thoughts, and just go at it with a can-do attitude.
Exactly.
Lunty, is that the imposter syndrome that you felt? Is that something that you buy into?
Yeah, it's something that I hid very well as well. And it wasn't until, again, I started to mature, I became a father, and I started realising, you know, I am worthy of this. The reasons that I'm there is because of the little things that I do here, you know, the small things that I do day in, day out. And then I was like, there's no fluke that I'm here. I'm actually like, again, you mentioned it in episode 1 about making your own luck, one of your former coaches. And again, it's the harder you work, the luckier you become at the end of the day. So that for me was just sort of solidifying that you are here, you do deserve to be here, and it's not by fluke. Look at what you've been through to get here. So give yourself a pat on the back and keep doing what got you there.
Yeah, and almost your philosophy is those 10,000 hours. Know that it's going to be at the end of the journey when you'll have all the tools, but don't lose faith while you're on the way.
Yeah, exactly. Like I say, everyone these days wants everything yesterday, but that's not how it works. No. Again, the old cheesy line, Rome wasn't built in a day, nor was it knocked down in a day. And I do believe in that, and that's the attitude that I have at life. Just one day at a time, one block at a time, and just keep moving forward.
So that's it, lads. Second episode in the bag. We're no longer rookies.
No, hopefully it was informative and educational.
Yeah.
And now that I've popped my cherry, I can go and tell on my mates.
Very good. I think being respected might be a bit further down the track for us, though.
Yes.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you to our friends at Elect. Subscribe and like. I hope to see you next time for Changing Rooms.